Creative Katie here. Welcome to my channel. You're not seeing double. I'm actually showing you how to create basically the same thing on two different size substrates. One, a door hanger 3x7 and a 7x10 art journal page. I've talked about how you can do that, use the same techniques in general composition. Thought I'd show you how. So this is my Canson mixed media art journal, and it measures 7x10. It's a nice medium size, and I'm using 3 colors of paint. I do pull a fourth one here, but I only use the 3. The orange, quinacridone magenta, and deep violet, and that is going to give us an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous background. So I have gessoed the page in my art journal. Typically, I have a gesso sessions every once in a while, and I have them already pre-gessoed. And I do that because it just prepares the page for whatever I throw at it. Sometimes it doesn't matter, and sometimes, depending on the technique, it really is necessary. I just find things typically go better when I gesso. And so on the door hanger, because it's wood, I have gessoed it as well as sanding it to prepare it. And I've taped off the side of the art journal page just to keep the gunk out. Now I've put some orange on there and quinacridone magenta and deep violet, and I'm just applying this with a makeup sponge. The gesso helps make it go on really smoothly, and I'm not too worried about blending, although I do like to get some of that blendingness with wet acrylic paints because it gives you a different color hue and you get more tones and more interest on your page. Now, because this is a bigger page, I am keeping some of the areas a little bit bigger. A bigger page typically I find can handle more colors, whereas a smaller substrate, such as the door hanger, you really want to limit it. I find that the background gets muddled and less if I try to put too much. So this is a stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. It is called Peacock Doily, and I just love the print. And I'm taking the deep violet here and I'm stenciling through it. Now, because this is a bigger substrate, I'm using the whole of this stencil. Now, my goal here is to put a very fine pattern. I don't want this pattern to be in your face. If I wanted to do that, I would use a color that was going to really contrast. And this is something that I've kind of knew I liked, but it was kind of a light bulb moment here, that you take whatever colors you have in the background, take the darkest color, and then apply the pattern. And it gives you this really lovely patterned, interesting background. And I'm just going all over and I'm overlapping. So now I'm going to apply the paint onto the wood door hanger. And I start with my finger, but I get the makeup sponge. Now, the gesso on here lifts up a lot of the paint. And so I'm having to adjust, and I do have to come in and give it a second layer just to build up the intensity that I want. Different substrates are going to react differently, and you will have to make adjustments based on that. It has to, whether they're absorbing the color or it just goes on smoother or there's more texture. It's all going to make a little bit of a difference. Because the makeup sponge is kind of lifting off with the gessoed surface, I'm using my finger on this one a little bit to spread the paint. So I'm just loving the blend of colors. These 3 colors are just to die for. So now the stencil, and I'm using this, it's a 6-inch stencil again, and I'm doing the same thing, but I'm kind of putting just parts of it. In the end, all of it is going to be stenciled. It's just I want more interest than putting it smack dab in the middle and just having one. And then some of the spaces I'm leaving blank. Now, if the paint was still wet, I could put the stencil on it and remove some of the paint through the stencil. That would give white where the stencil is, where you pulled off the paint. And that would give a slightly different effect. So now that it has dried, I am going to take gold paint and my script stamp from Darkroom Door, and I'll put a link to it and any stencils in the description box below. Thank you for shopping through my Amazon links. And I'm just spreading out acrylic paint in gold and stamping it on there. Again, this is not an in-your-face, bold detail, but oh my goodness, it adds so much. That gold with those background colors just really work well. When you use your stamp with acrylic paints, you really have to take the time to stop and clean them. I don't worry about it too much because I'm only using my stamps for mixed media. I'm not using it on cards and the like where I'm going to need a pristine stamp. And I'm giving this a dry. So there is the sentiment that I'm going to use on both of these substrates. And I'm putting it here because I'm trying to decide how much of this sunflower stencil I want to put and what part of this. Now this is a 12 by 12 stencil. I have the 6 by 6. It just seemed a little too small or short. So I'm playing with it. I'm off camera. I'm putting the sentiment where I think it might go, trying to get an idea of how this is going to look. And if it doesn't work one way, you can flip it another way. And again, you're eyeballing it. What looks good? Now, obviously, I can't get more than 2 of these sunflowers on this one. And I know you should go odd numbers. But what I've done here is I have not taken the sunflower all the way down to the bottom. So I've shortened it as compared to what you're going to see me do on the art journal page. And I'm also taking some of these sunflowers as a focal image and going to be stenciling or using modeling paste through it where the sunflowers are a little off the substrate. So once I decide, I'm going to grab the Crafters Workshop black modeling paste. Now this stuff is to die for. And I'm putting some of it on my glass media mat and I'm going to apply it with a gift card. I just find I have the most success. So I'm putting it through and fingers crossed because you never quite know exactly how it's going to turn out. And there's that moment of fear of what if I mess up? But the reveal, when I did this, it was like, yes, I absolutely love it. The stark black of the modeling paste looks so great. So I was very, very excited. So now you saw what I did with the door hanger. I did 2 of them. I lowered it on the stencil and they went off the edge. Now, I could have tried to get 4 sunflowers in there, but typically I like to keep it to odd numbers. It just looks more pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to do just 3 sunflowers and I'm masking off what I don't want. And again, off camera, I was playing around. I was trying these 3 or these 3 or these 3. So I've used it the full length and I have more sunflowers because it's a bigger space. If I was doing a 12 by 12 canvas, I might do all of the sunflowers, or I might do 5 to do an odd number. So play with your stencils and see what looks best for you on whatever size you're doing. So you saw me do the stamping on the wood door hanger, and now I'm putting it on here. Now, because the stamp isn't big enough to cover the whole thing, I'm just putting the script here and there and everywhere. Remember, I'm going to have a focal image in front, and it's not important that the entire thing is done with the script stamp. You kind of go with a little bit more randomness, whereas I just went top to bottom on the door hanger. And you can see, basically you get the effect, or your eye thinks that the script is going right across. Now, I goofed and didn't turn on the camera, so I applied the modeling paste again through the stencil, and there's the reveal. And the stencil, of course, is very ugly. I typically take a key card and get off the excess, and then I spray it with my Murphy's oil soap and detergent and just clean it all up. And you need to do that like right away because you don't want to wreck your stencil. So there we have both of them, and I'm absolutely loving it. And quite honestly, I could have left it as it was and it would have been perfectly fine. And in fact, I really do want to do this color combination with that stencil on, maybe an 8 by 10 canvas or a larger substrate. So stay tuned, I might just show you that. So now I'm edging it in black because I want that kind of shading around the edges to frame my work. So on the door hanger, I'm using the makeup sponge. But it doesn't matter whether it's flat or whether it's the door hanger or whether it's a canvas. I always want to edge the outside edges. It feels like it floats off if I don't have it edged in some way. Now the makeup sponge for the page, it works. And I persist in doing it this way, but I would rather have used the floating acrylic technique and shaded the black around the edges. Same effect, 2 different ways, mainly because they're a different substrate, and that's why you need lots of techniques in your toolbox. This background with the peacock doily looks like wallpaper, kind of flocked wallpaper behind it. And here I'm using the float technique because it just needed to be done. So I ended up doing the float technique, and I'm getting more shading and a better effect with it. The stencil for the sunflowers is another Crafters Workshop stencil. It's a new for summer of 2019, and it's called Sunflower Meadow. I just can't take my eyes off of it. It's just, I'm loving it so much. Wasn't quite dark enough around the edges. I wanted a little bit more. And then I can take off that tape. So no gunk got into my coils, no paint got into it. And if I want to take this and frame it up, I can. I can just cut it off the coils or rip it out and do it. Now we're going to put a sentiment, and we're going to put the same sentiment on both. So there's the one size, develop an attitude of gratitude, and I've done fussy cutting to get rid of a lot of the white. And this one is a little bit a larger size because it's a larger substrate. I find I need a larger sentiment. You could have this small one, but it looks like it's too small for me. And I've used the script in some of it because there's a script stamp in the background. And again, those two elements work together. And I did the few words, I just left them in a chunk. So I have another sentiment here, simply blessed, which is kind of a mid-size. Still, I think too small. Definitely going with the bigger one. But I'm deciding whether I want to keep it white or paint it gold. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this other sentiment. I'm going to use a makeup sponge and put gold paint on top. And I'll try it. And then I'll know if I want to go ahead and paint them gold, and which I did. I just found that it just worked better with the deep, rich, warm colors in the background. Whereas the white was just a little too stark and there's no white in the background. If I had stenciled with white with the peacock doily, I may have kept it white. But usually you want to have, if you're having another color in there, have it somewhere else in more than one place. Now the gold paint is very translucent, so it doesn't block off the print. Some paints are opaque and they will block out, so to get around that, you could paint the paper first and then put it through the printer, depending on how you feel about putting painted paper through the printer. You could print it onto scrapbook paper. Or you can water it down, the paint, and just do more of a wash. You can water it down with water, or you could water it down with gel medium or matte medium and make kind of a glaze. I'm not sure if that's the formal definition of a glaze, but I think you understand what I mean. So I'm going to use the matte gel and glue these down. The gold here also works with the gold of the stamp in the background. When deciding what elements to use, what colors, you want everything to work together. And that's going to give you a happy page. It's going to work. Everything's going to fall together. As usual, there's a lot of playing around, getting the positioning right. I just eyeball it as to getting it straight. And because there's texture underneath, I am pushing it down to make sure that it adheres. With the larger one, the art journal page, you may have noted that the font for the word "the attitude of," I did it in a bolder font. Again, specifically chosen because it's a bigger page, where the words here are very fine. They're not, the font in the middle words aren't that bold, and I don't want them to be. So there we have the two together. And I'm taking my Sakura Glaze pen in black and I'm outlining the page. I love the Sakura Glaze pen. It is somewhat dimensional and it's shiny. But it does take a little bit of time to dry, so you got to be careful not to smudge. Now I'm debating whether I want to go around the words that are in the rectangles, and I choose not to. And then I'm using the same secure glaze pen on the door hanger. I like this glaze pen because I can go one way or the other way. It writes equally as well, whether I am pushing forward or moving it back. It's nice and thick, and it writes really easy. So we're coming up to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful to see me creating on 2 different substrates. If you like that kind of video, leave me a comment because I can definitely do more of those. And there you have the 2 together. I love both of them. The colors, the background, the richness. As I was saying, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, share with your creative friends. Check out the links if you're interested in any of the products. Happy creating!